So for those of you who know me, you will know that I use this term. It's a biblical term. You reap what you sow, and it's used actually frequently in our program preparation, one of the value add modules. And I like this, you reap what you sow, because in such a short phrase, there's so much that you can really get your teeth into and digest. You reap what you sow talks to you as an individual, you as a person. There's no plural here. You reaping what you sow. You sow. So that means that we now can start excluding some of the environmental and circumstantial and people-related excuses that we use. They can be very good explanations, but they can't be excuses, because ultimately it all come back to you to say you reap what you sow. The other thing that I really like about that phrase is this construct of reaping and sowing. And recently I was listening to somebody who I listen to frequently, Pastor T.D. Jakes, and he talked about this construct of reaping and sowing. Now, what I really like about this is that there's a tendency for us to sometimes believe that one is easier than the other. That everybody consistently talks about this construct of going into your harvest, but never understanding that as you go into your harvest, it's about as much work as sowing. Reaping is work, so is sowing. So in other words, the point that he was getting across really well was, which I absolutely agree with, was that there's a consistent and a continuous momentum of working when you sow and working when you reap. Working when you sow and working when you reap. There's no point at which you can cruise all the way to harvest time without necessarily having to put the effort in to get the harvest that you're looking for. And that is actually really important in the construct of really beginning to understand that those who are successful consistently are consistently successful, which means that you consistently have to be sowing and you consistently need to be harvesting. And once you harvest, what does that mean? It means you have to sow again, right? So you're going through this cycle of sowing and harvesting, sowing and harvesting, sowing and harvesting, working and working, working and working, working and working, you working, you harvesting, you working, you harvesting. And it begins to put into perspective the role and the function of those around you. Because those around you play a role in supporting, advising, diagnosing, they can be coaching, they can be encouraging, they can be inspiring, but ultimately that's all that they can do for you. So when you start looking around the world, particularly young people who have qualified with a degree and are having an expectation to get a job, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You need to start sowing. You need to start sowing again. I know you think that you have harvest with your degree, but you need to start sowing again, because you're going to have to harvest again, and you're going to need to start sowing again. You are going to need to start sowing. Not the expectation of what the economy must do for you, not the expectation of what the government should have done, not the expectation of the fertile ground that you're expecting. You need to be sowing and harvesting. Once you've harvested, you need to sow again. You need to harvest. So you need to be asking yourself the question, what is it now that I need to be preparing myself for the next phase? Because ultimately, as you have managed to successfully harvest what you sowed earlier, you need to sow again so that you can reap what you sowed.